Hey, Foot Clan, before we start today's show, I just want to say a big, humongous thank you to everybody over at jointhefoot.com. There's over 2,500 of you in our fantasy football community where you can help support the show, and you get all kinds of bonus things like an extra show every week. And we just added last week our game day alerts where we are giving you all the ins, all the outs, everything you need to know to breaking news on Sunday morning. So head over there. We got our upcoming giveaways for this month as well. That's jointhefoot.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
No! Oh, is that the John?
No! Stop it!
Is that the John Kuhn call?
Kuhn! No! Oh, I hate John Kuhn so much.
Oh.
John Kuhn,
The destroyer
run
of
to
dreams.
your waiver wires.
We got to get him on the show just to ask if everyone hates him.
Right.
I think the team loves him.
Oh, I'm sure
Yeah.
the team do. I'm sure the fans do as well. But
You know what? It's so great for so many reasons because when something like John Kuhn happens, he succeeded. So
Yeah.
then they're going to do it more. It's great.
it's terrible. As a Drew Brees, Mark Ingram stack owner, I was not happy with 3 touchdowns to John Kuhn.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy, Mike, and Jason back again. It is October 3rd to be exact. Monday morning show going on right now. We have a great one for you, going through all of the stud muffins in your fantasy football league, all of the guys that poop their big boy pants. We've got our Raising Cane's Rising Stars on the show today, and a number of other things, including catching you up on injury news, depth chart news, all the major storylines in fantasy football, and we'll have a good time doing it. So I'm excited. You guys excited?
I am
Oh,
so pumped.
My almost upset of the week, won by a point again.
You failed.
No,
That's a success. I say you can win by 1. I realize that does not make it an almost upset. But wait, it could be just like an upset that, was
It's not almost.
just an
it
almost
happened.
upset.
It
All
happened.
right, yeah, I can't figure out a way to make that
no,
work.
I can figure out a way because sometimes the point spread is like 10 points and you're picking an almost upset. They're not going to win, but they're going to be close. But in a game like that, the
spread
line
was
on that was
3.5.
like 3 points. Yeah.
So
Go-
they need
go
to lose,
Raiders.
lose by 1.
Go Raiders. Hey, that happened with Tennessee. Tennessee was my almost upset on week 2, and they won by a point.
And you failed there.
Look.
Stop bringing up your
can-
failures.
You can go to Vegas with my almost upsets. That's what I'm telling you. So, let me ask you guys a question that you know the answer to, but you need to pretend like you don't.
Okay.
Other than Matt Ryan, what was the only quarterback in the top 7 performers to rush for more than 1 yard?
It must have been Cameron Newton.
No, it wasn't Cameron Newton.
Oh, golly. Was he not in the top 7?
Oh, golly. What?
You really tickled Mike
Oh,
there, like
yeah.
to an
Oh, golly.
really extreme
Yeah.
level.
That was very funny.
It was Blake Bortles. It was Blake Bortles.
So there was not a lot of rushing, you're saying, in the top
There was
7.
not a lot of rushing. There was there was a guy named Big Ben Roethlisberger that threw 5 touchdowns on my fantasy team this weekend after
He got you.
Marvin Jones got me last week. That's one of the frustrating parts of fantasy football is sometimes if you were Julio Jones this weekend, as in not being him, but if you were Julio Jones'd,
Right.
you didn't win.
Yeah, now
It's difficult to win against Julio this week.
yeah, I had the benefit of I had Julio Jones. I went up against Big Ben. So Julio Jones saved my bacon.
Yeah, I had him in 2 leagues that I won handily, but no, Big Ben got me in our league of record. Let me ask you this question. Quick question of the day. I think it's a great one because I have a number of names. Tyler wants to know, who's the highest drafted player that you think should be dropped for non-injury reasons?
Ooh.
And so
I'm going to say Golden Tate.
Sure.
That's
the
mine.
name that comes to my mind.
He was going as high as the 4th round at certain times. He has not only honestly, they have tried to get him involved. The targets were there, the downfield targets. Every route seems bad. He was the purpose. He was the entire cause of one of Stafford's interceptions, and they
benched him too.
As they should have. He's been playing terribly.
6 catches for Bolden, a season high. Bolden's going to be involved more. I think Tate can be dropped. I think Tyler Lockett can be dropped. He's got a bye week this week. Holding Tyler Lockett through the bye after how he's performed seems foolish to me for fantasy owners when you can go out and sign a player. So I think Tyler Lockett's one of those higher drafted guys. Do you guys have any other names you want to throw out there?
But this was for non-injury reasons. Tyler Lockett, as we are going to talk about in the news, is actually injured. We found out recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna count him though because he's been on the field playing.
Yeah,
okay.
I
fair.
I agree with that.
But I mean that might be the reason somebody talks themselves into holding him, but the volume doesn't seem to be there. Jimmy Graham's involved much more than we thought he would be. Anybody else come to mind?
I'm cruising through the ADP right now. Cruising down the street.
Cruising down the street.
6'4". No one's jumping out. I mean,
what about Jeremy
Tate's the big one.
Langford? Jeremy Langford.
Yeah, well, I think we had kind of consensus said you can drop him last week.
That's an injury one too. Though,
it was not consensus, but it's certainly an injury.
It was a 2/3 vote.
Here's a non-injured player that had an okay week. TJ Yeldon. Would you drop TJ Yeldon? I wouldn't.
No, not after this last week. He was the clear leader of the backfield, and he performed well. So he's a hold.
Josh Gordon. Sell him. I would try immediately to sell TJ Yeldon after a strong performance that I thought had very little to do with TJ Yeldon.
I completely agree. I guess I'm just assuming that you can't get anything for TJ Yeldon, but if you can, I mean, there are so many players that they just go off the last week. You can have a guy who's been playing great all year, has a bad week, and they're the worst, and you can buy him low. And so yeah, if you can trade Yeldon.
Last question before we get into the rewind. Last player I want to bring up. Would you drop Corey Coleman if you needed somebody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can find us on YouTube where we do the show after the show. I'm going to tease something. A ridiculous thing happened to me this weekend that I will not – I mean, Jason's laughing.
It's so great.
I don't want to get into it until tomorrow on the show after the show, but something just uncharacteristic for me. I'm sure that when I told Mike what happened, he wondered if Jason had just logged into my account and it was Jason that had done this. So I'll share that on the show after the show. That's only on YouTube. And then check out our community, as Mike said, on jointhefoot.com. Let's go ahead and get into – what are we doing now?
The Fantasy Rewind.
Yeah, I gotta find the button, though.
Uh-oh.
I'm having a hard time.
Weekly Rewind.
All right, let's get into the rewind. What do you want to start with?
Well, I will start with it because I had already mentioned it, but apparently Doug Baldwin has told ESPN that Tyler Lockett is playing through a torn PCL in his knee, which helps explain possibly the lack of usage for Lockett. The snap counts are way down. I know that Jimmy Graham has been highly involved, but I think that Lockett's injury, which happened week 2, is a huge reason for Jimmy Graham's reemergence in the offense. So
yeah, I just think if that's possibly true that he's actually playing through a torn PCL, I think that's dumb. That he was out there returning kicks.
Sure.
Like, that just seems foolhardy.
All right, we saw Trevor Siemian go down this weekend.
Saw a bunch of quarterbacks go down.
Sprained AC joint in his left shoulder.
His non-throwing arm.
Here's the thing that's amazing about the Broncos to me. One, Paxton Lynch more than held his own and looked great. And what I love about Paxton Lynch as a quarterback and why I think he could be streamable this week if he plays is because he is hyper athletic. I mean, he can get out of the pocket so fast and make a play, and he has 2 of the best wide receivers in the game to throw to. So I was very impressed with him. But here's what I was going to say about the Broncos. They were up 20-7 or something when this happened. 17-7, 20-7. With the Broncos, you know the game's over. It's incredible how good their defense is, where you know the game is 100% over. I mean, it's just I knew for a fact Jameis Winston, there was no chance he could come back.
Oh yeah, is it? Well, let me ask you this: this week they have to face the #1 quarterback in the league, in Matt Ryan, who I owe an apology to because I've been really throwing some shade on Matt Ryan. And,
yeah, you did.
Wow.
We'll see what happens this week. He beats the Broncos.
If he beats the Broncos,
you better have a jersey on Monday.
Yeah, I'm gonna be over at Pristine Auction.
I'm just
signed Matt Ryan jersey.
I'm just happy we're even here this morning after what's happened to our Cardinals.
There was some tweets, people saying, "Well, I enjoyed the podcast while it lasted."
Seriously, Jeff Fisher at home. Cardinals have lost now at home 2 times.
Yes.
Yeah, you said that quick.
Yeah, a lot of
Carson,
people have been asking for the Jeff Fisher apology from me as I also threw shade on him.
You didn't just throw shade. You had an entire show after the show dedicated to disparaging the man's personal and professional character.
That's true and accurate. But let me just say, never gonna happen. Never, ever gonna happen.
Is it because he won in spite of those 2 challenges that
Yes,
were the most
he
embarrassing challenges?
He won in spite of coaching. So congratulations.
Maybe because he's coached so long that he coached before challenges even happened, that he's just like,
I don't need them.
I still want to use them. I still want to see what these things are about.
Well, I had tweeted, maybe he was confused that it was just like you're playing kind of a board game and you're like, oh, it was a drop. But if I throw this flag,
Maybe it's not drop.
It's just a free catch. It's a free catch.
Carson Palmer placed in the concussion protocol, didn't get to finish the game, so Drew Stanton went in to throw some interceptions. Palmer is now in the unfortunate situation of being in the protocol with the Thursday night game.
Yeah,
4 days of
I doubt
rest.
it. He's not. I highly doubt that he's going to play on Thursday, which is a huge downgrade.
Fitzgerald, Brown,
Yes,
to even David Johnson.
Everyone.
David Johnson will still be a must start, but the Cardinals wide receivers you might have to think about it.
Sammy Watkins was placed on injury reserve over the weekend.
That's the best thing that they can do right now. The guy needs rest. That's the only thing that can heal up his foot. And
PPR leagues, Robert Woods.
Yeah, no.
He had 5-6 catches this week.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, when you look at the games that Sammy Watkins has actually fully missed, Robert Woods is clearly their number 1 wide receiver. But, the ceiling isn't very high.
Yes.
So, yeah, PPR, he's okay.
The thing about Robert Woods, and I might be alone in this, every time I watch him play, I think he's pretty good.
Me too.
Like,
No,
I
you're not
watch
alone.
him, and he always looks – he reminds me of, like, when Marvin Jones was the 2 or the 3 in Cincinnati and he make a play, I go, oh, that guy looks pretty good.
He has a major quarterback problem, though, because Tyrod Taylor, you know, he can bomb it out and he can produce fantasy for one of those, like, down the field stretch, catch a bomb type of players.
Goodwin.
Sammy Watkins could do that. Goodwin could do that. But he's not that great, just grinding it out between the 20s, hitting, 10-yard outs.
That's what he did this game, though. So we'll see what happens. I'm with you, though. I don't think Woods is I think he got better upside plays. Forte.
I'll say an update for Sammy Watkins. There's a Schefter report that it is likely that he will need another surgery, which means he would not be coming back. They might have to redo the screw in his foot.
All right, let's move on. Matt Forte, look, there was one report that he was on a cart headed to the Jets x-ray room, but there has not been a lot of news about this. Something to pay attention to. If you're in a league that, waiver wire, you might want to look at Bilal Powell.
Bilal Powell out-snapped Forte and out-produced him.
Bilal Powell has been actually really hyper efficient this season. If you look at his
When they
fantasy
actually played
points
him.
per touch, yeah, he's been great. He hasn't been involved that much, but he's been involved now 2 weeks in a row. I believe 2 weeks ago he caught 6 catches. This last week he was involved.
He caught 6 catches? He
Fire up the Twitter account.
He caught the actual catch?
Yeah, no, he did.
How do you
He
catch
did.
a catch? That's amazing.
I cannot catch a catch.
Passes. I
Yeah,
think
there you go.
That's what you were looking for.
But he did catch passes.
Yeah, he caught several passes for 2 weeks in a row, double digits in fantasy points. If you're in a half-point league this week, got to pay attention to this report on Forte because he was inefficient. Obviously, a tough matchup, and then maybe an injury, so we'll see. Chris Johnson left week 4 against the Rams. Groin injury, doesn't look good. Probably going to miss some time. David Johnson, Andre Ellington will be the depth chart in Arizona. Cam Newton, monster concussion.
Yes.
I saw that play, and I know you guys were somewhat happy that, his little casual jaunt was punished.
Happy is the wrong word.
For you.
The right word. What?
I said for you.
Oh, okay. No, the word for me is the guy was playing football, and they were. I believe the play was not called a penalty, and there was people freaking out. Well, it should have been a penalty, and he's a runner.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a legal play, and if you are going to walk, taunt your way into the end zone, and not pay attention to a defender who's closing in on you, you're going to get hit.
I think he made a calculated mistake.
Yes, I agree.
Because he looked left, thought the guy wasn't there, looked right, and then when he came back,
I'm not happy about it.
I love Cameron Newton. I'm not like one of those, oh, get off my lawn. I like him dabbing in the end zone. I like his personality. I'm a big Cam Newton fan as far as the dude. But any guy, like or dislike, if you want to like taunt your way, I'm always rooting for you to get just smacked in the mouth when you're going like, oh, I'm a big UFC fan, right? I love when the guy is saying like, hit me, go ahead, and he drops his hands. I love when that guy gets just knocked out because shame on you.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Yeah. Eric Ebron left in the first quarter with knee and ankle injuries, but he did return and caught all 4 of his targets after the injury, put a scare in his owners.
Yeah, should be good to go.
Pay attention to him. Kevin White, unfortunately, exited week 4. He was very involved in the offense before leaving, but he had an ankle injury, headed for an MRI. We'll see what happens. Eddie Royal stepped up in a big way,
yes,
played great. And if you look at Eddie Royal's stats, you're talking about 3 or 4 weeks having a major fantasy impact. I mean, we're talking about, I think, 14 points, and 20-something yesterday. So,
yeah, in half-point leagues, yeah.
You have to pay attention to him. So, Dwayne Washington left with an ankle injury, and Riddick and Washington, really disappointing fantasy owners along with Stafford and Jones and Tate.
Yeah, the whole Lions offense. Dwayne Washington, though, we don't know. The jury is still very out on how he can produce because the injury was very early in the game.
All right, let's talk about Devin Funchess. He's out with a toe injury, not really fantasy relevant. Tevin Coleman, he's dealing with so he has the sickle cell trait that prohibits players a lot of the times from playing in high altitude. Is that correct?
Correct.
So he may not be able to play in week 5?
Against Denver, it's worth noting, or they might limit it a little.
Okay, so we need to at least pay attention to that. Tom Brady's back.
Yup. If he was on your bench, congratulations. You now get to play Tom Brady.
Also, this is called the week I go and try to get Rob Gronkowski.
Yes.
Because Gronkowski's been active but done nothing for you for 2 weeks.
He might have hurt his owner 2 weeks in a row.
He probably did. Because I had him ranked 8 this past week. I moved him down later in the week just out of a hedging because it's like always start Gronk, but then it's Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
So I think if you can go by Gronk, your world's going to change with him on your team and Brady behind center. Mike, you said you wanted to mention something else.
I just wanted to throw out the PSA. We're through 4 weeks of the fantasy football season. That means some of you are getting ready. You're looking ahead. You're scouting the schedule for the playoffs. Just a reminder, Cleveland and Tennessee are on bye week 13. This is an extremely late bye week. So if you're rocking DeMarco Murray, Isaiah Crowell, some of these guys, just know that week 13 you will be without them.
Yeah, check your leagues and see if that's when your fantasy playoffs start. If you do like the 2-week-long playoff matchups, you might actually start in week 13. And I would say this, if your playoffs are in week 13, if you're in a league where you are in the playoffs in week 13, I would trade DeMarco Murray and Isaiah Crowell, and I would get something for them because you're getting an absolute zero. It's not a bad matchup. We tell people, like, look, if you've got studs and they've got a bad matchup in the playoffs, don't over worry about that. But that's not a bad matchup. That's a guaranteed zero.
I don't know if I would trade them right now. I might ride them.
Sure.
I
get a couple more victories.
Get a couple more victories, but just keep that in the back of your mind.
All right, we're going to move on to the fantasy stud muffins this week. But before we do that, look, I want to thank our sponsor of today's show, Mott & Bow. You know us by now. We only talk about great products and great brands on the show, ones that we can personally endorse because we've used them. Mott & Bow is a New York City-based startup that is changing the way guys buy jeans online. They have premium denim jeans at a fair price point. We have all used them. I am sitting in them right now.
I love my Mott & Bow.
They are incredibly, incredibly comfortable, and they have a home try-on program. They changed the way that you can buy jeans online, and we have a special deal with them. Now, these are premium handcrafted jeans. If you go to the mall and you buy designer jeans or nice jeans, because everybody needs a few pairs of really nice jeans that they can wear. These things last you forever. But in the mall, you got to go pay a huge premium to get them, and Mott & Bow has been doing this, manufacturing their own jeans, since 1982. So they know what they're doing, and they can get the price point down. And what's really cool is if you go on their website, that's Mott and Bow, and that's MOTTANDBOW, mottandbow.com, and use the promo code BALLERS. You can try these out. You get 20% off, and they have a really neat program where if you're unsure between two of your waist sizes, you can use the home try-on program, and they'll send you 2 pairs. You try one on, you send the other one back. That way you get the right fit, and we cannot endorse them enough. They are very, very comfortable jeans. They're awesome, and you get 20% off. Go to mottandbow.com. That's MOTTANDBOW.com. Use the promo code BALLERS for 20% off. That is BALLERS.
Ballers.
For 20% off, mottandbow.com. Definitely check them out. Let's go ahead and get into the Stud Muffins.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, there were a lot of them. They weren't all on my team, unfortunately.
You got to play against some.
Yeah, I got to enjoy Big Ben just going ham. That was one of those eye roll games because I was going into the matchup against Big Ben, and I just need basically to win. All I needed was Big Ben to be okay. Like right. I had Kirk Cousins. So I'm like, if Big Ben goes out, puts up 25, that's fine. And when you're watching those games and you're like on edge and you're like, oh please, nothing bad happened, and 2 turnovers in the first short fields for Big Ben that you just know are touchdowns.
I mean, lucky for you, he went full Band-Aid. I mean, that thing was...
That's true.
Your hope was...
just ripped it right off.
Your hope was severed immediately.
Look, when Marcus Wheaton's making plays, you know you're not meant to win this week. Big Ben, 22 for 27, 300 yards, 5 touchdowns. Could have scored 5 more if he wanted to. Matt Ryan, 28 for 37, a measly 503 yards.
503
and
yards.
4 touchdowns, including, 300 of them with Julio Jones. Look, Carolina misses Josh Norman. Don't you think?
Probably a little bit.
Yep.
You know who doesn't miss him? Julio Jones. Really impressive. This is the game that I think was a make or break. I think we said that in the week. We said if Matt Ryan comes out
Yes.
and destroys Carolina.
Yeah, no, it was a big test because Matt Ryan had gotten some very cushy matchups to start, and I will say this: perhaps we are just over analyzing Carolina, giving them a little bit too much credit that they have to still be this feared matchup. I believe it was a great performance by Ryan. I'm going to give humongous credit to him as far that Carolina is still a good defense, but maybe Carolina is not that elite defense that you have to where you're like Denver, where you're going, I'm benching my guys.
You want to hear something interesting that I just realized?
What's that?
In my brain. The 2 NFC championship teams, Carolina and Arizona, are 1-3, and their quarterbacks were concussed this week.
Yeah, it's no good. And I agree with what you're saying, Mike, and I think it's important to know because we need to evaluate Matt Ryan and say how much of it was him, how much of it was Carolina. I mean, look, week 1 against Denver, that was a pure defensive matchup. There wasn't a lot of it was a mostly running game. Then week 2 against San Francisco and Blaine Gabbert, they gave up 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is not the Carolina that we know, and then get torched this week by Matt Ryan. So, I know this is weird to do 2 weeks in a row, but I feel like there's just no way you could play Matt Ryan this week against
Denver
because they are legit. They are the truth.
Yeah, I mean, Aqib Talib is the boss. I mean, I agree with you. I can't do it. I don't think it's a flame stay-in situation. I just don't think you can do it. Now, that game's in Denver too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no thank you. But amazing week for Matt Ryan. You don't drop him. Russell Wilson, 23 for 32, 309 and 3 touchdowns.
Very impressive playing on the injuries for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Well, the quick question was what top quarterback didn't have, rushing yards? Russell Wilson was one of the top quarterbacks,
right,
and he always has rushing yards. Didn't need it.
Didn't need them. Derek Carr, 4 touchdowns on only 199 yards. Had a very good game. 3 of them went to Crabtree.
Has Derek Carr moved into
must-start category?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, especially with at home next week against San Diego, which has been giving up a lot of passing yardage. Derek Carr's a must-start next week. Blake Bortles had a good game in London.
Yeah,
this was nice to see. Well, an okay game.
I would say, not huge yardage. He only threw for 207, but he two touchdowns and ran one in. Yeah,
ran for 36 yards too. If he does that, it really helps that baseline. Allen Robinson looked good. Joe Flacco, Brian Hoyer had big games. We were the 3 highest experts on Brian Hoyer in the fantasy football community, which is a terrifying place to live.
Oh, yeah.
Scary.
I was very comfortable there.
Oh, it's a dangerous place.
Well, he came through 28 for 36, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Hoyer.
Joe Flacco, good game, 298 and a touchdown, ran one in.
Yeah.
Steve Smith looking like Steve Smith. We'll talk about him
yes.
soon enough. And Andrew Luck pieced it together in garbage time with no offensive line. They actually started nobody there.
Well,
It was
comeback time.
One center, they just snap it to him, he runs and chucks it.
And don't skip over Case Keenum.
No, Case Keenum.
Hey, if you started Case Keenum, send me a screenshot. I want to see the courage.
I went and checked our rankings on him to just see if any of us had him above. We were all 30 on him. I mean, in Arizona, that was one that
I think we were the highest rated fantasy football analysts on Case Keenum.
with him at 30.
Yeah.
No, you're not far
We're
off.
probably not far
You're not
off.
far off. Andrew Luck, Todd Gurley, those are 2 guys that you look at them and you say, boy, they're being wasted right now. They're being wasted.
Yep.
Andrew Luck with an offensive line, you know the numbers. I think he'd be the number 1 quarterback. I really do.
If he actually had
Fantasy-wise,
time.
if he just had time. Because when he gets out of the pocket or has a moment, he finds people.
Well, the reason
and then they drop the ball.
The reason garbage time worked for him in that game was the fact that they went no huddle and could tire the defense a little. The defense couldn't just pin their ears back time and time and time again. I think they need to start that way next week as a method of protecting, of helping their offensive line.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Rashad Jennings is out tonight.
Yeah.
OUT out tonight. Orleans Darkwood to start for the Giants. Also, Kenneth Dixon on track to play in week number 5. You saw Justin Forsett get benched. We didn't even get to talk about that. Justin Forsett got benched on Sunday morning. Javorius Allen started. We're going to talk about
Terrence West started, but Buck Allen replaced.
What did I say?
You said Javorius Allen started.
Sorry, he got activated.
Yes.
He was activated. All right, let's talk about the running backs, the stud muffins of the week, and let's talk about the number 1 fantasy football running back right now. DeMarco Murray, 25 for 95, 2 touchdowns, 2 for 24 through the air, did it in Houston, did it on the ground consistently, and this is their game plan to win
Getting it
ball
done.
games.
As of now, he's completely matchup proof. Good defense, bad defense, whether they're up or down, he's super involved.
Well,
he is
Derrick Henry, right? Barely played.
Yep, he is the centerpiece of that offense, and you always start guys like that.
So we talked about the fact he doesn't go on bye until week 13.
That's nice.
Which can be really nice. Would you trade Ezekiel Elliott for DeMarco Murray right now in a redraft?
No,
I would not.
Would you trade Melvin Gordon for him?
Yes.
You would?
Yeah,
You'd rather have DeMarco than Gordon?
I would.
I think I would too. Longer track record of
What
of
about
proving it.
okay, all right, let's stay there. DeMarco Murray, big week. Ezekiel Elliott, 23 for 138 and a touchdown. Really looked good. They came back in that game. Impressed with that offense and that team right now and what they're able to do in a game where it seemed like they were probably up against it, being down a couple touchdowns in San Francisco.
Yeah, it was a very strange start to that game.
Matt Jones had a good game.
Hey, Matt Jones.
I remember you.
22. Look, Matt Jones, Isaiah Crowell, 2 big weeks. Both of them over 100 yards and a touchdown, caught a few passes. What do you make of this? What is the long-term viability of Matt Jones and Isaiah Crowell as RB1, RB2 type of guys?
I like Crowell. He is impressing me. Whenever I'm watching him run the ball, he looks fantastic. He's getting carries. Matt Jones, I think that was the matchup.
Yeah.
This is likely the best game you're going to get from Matt Jones all year.
He might have one other good one, but it's going to be a matchup game as well. For Isaiah Crowell, for me, I am not completely sold and bought in that he is going to be able to do this week in, week out.
What about as an RB2?
As an RB2, I do believe that.
That's where he is for me.
He just looks great this year.
Yes.
I mean, he just looks the part.
He looks a lot different.
He was a former number 1 recruit. So this is not a guy with no pedigree. To me, Crowell, he looks the part. 15 for 112, done it for 4 weeks now. From an efficiency standpoint, I agree with Jason. He's probably not a 1 because of the offense and the team, but a 2, a lock and loaded. And I'd be going to trade for him because I think he solidifies a fantasy roster in that 2 spot. Now, a guy not listed here, but we need to talk about him, is Jordan Howard. I mean, 23 for 111 on the ground this week. John Fox came out and said he was, quote, outstanding and that they were going to ride him pretty heavy here on out.
Yeah, very, very interesting. If you watched him play, he looked very solid. He looked immensely better than Jeremy Langford. So,
Extra yards
yeah,
on contact.
There were
it doesn't
several
just fall over.
There were several plays where he was stopped in the a 3-yard run where he was stopped 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and fought for 5 and ended up with a 3-yard run, which normally is like, it's not that good. But that's what you're going to need if you're running for the Bears, and he's able to do it.
That makes me wonder what the yard per carry of a normal running back would be in St. Louis, because I feel like the 2-point whatever that Todd Gurley's averaging is probably good compared to like because he's probably, you know what I mean? There are a couple of these plays where
they got 12 in the box.
Yeah, and he's breaking a tackle to get 1 yard. And so he's not in this section, by the way. Jason, give us your perspective on Mark Ingram, who had a great game, especially caught the ball, but then John Kuhn stole 3 touchdowns at the goal line. So is this good or bad or ugly?
This is great.
Okay.
It's great, great, great. Look, I wish that Mark Ingram had all 4 of those rushing touchdowns. However, Mark Ingram last year was valuable when he was involved in the passing game. It was one of those things where no matter what, like we were talking about with DeMarco Murray, if you're down, if you're up, you're going to be involved. He can get 50 yards on the ground, 50 yards through the air, and that's great. That's a 100-yard all-purpose game, and that's what you're seeing. Plus, he scored. This is the second week in a row he's been more involved in the passing game, so I love it. Mark Ingram's looking very good from here on out.
That's tight end time. Jordan Reed, Rule 86.
You skipped Le'Veon Bell and LaShawn McCoy had monster games as well.
Le'Veon!
Le'Veon Bell is back. He is
very good.
He is just an incredible running back to watch. How have more people not watched him play and tried to implement his style of? And I'm watching it, and I'm trying to put into words. And I feel like this is what he does. Le'Veon Bell power walks. You know that the exercise of the late 80s when you're power walking. That's Le'Veon Bell, and he just power walks his way through the line, and then he runs. He is spectacular. His patience is unbelievable.
I think that it takes a unique quickness to turn the Jets on in those moments. You know what I mean? Where there are a lot of guys that I've seen try to navigate a line of scrimmage, but his vision is better than all of them. It's like a perfect storm that seems easier than it is.
It's ironic because who he reminds me of is like the running back version of Antonio Brown, where I feel like those guys have the same attitude when they're running, and they're brothers.
They're BFFs.
All right, let's talk about tight ends. Jordan Reed, Rule 86, 9 for 73, 2 touchdowns. This is the game we were hoping for from Jordan Reed, the type of performance that separates him from other tight ends. Jordan Reed is great. I don't think there's anything we need to say other than to acknowledge his great performance.
Yes.
You start him. Greg Olsen is awesome. that catch he made for the touchdown, and then he made another for the 2-point conversion, and it was a total, drop the mic moment where it's just, get out of my way. I mean, just incredible. Great catch. It was the Derek Anderson touchdown throw. Couldn't believe he made it. 9 for 76 and a touchdown.
I will say this, if you are the Greg Olsen owner, and you're like, oh, man, Cam's out, it's Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson and Greg Olsen is a spectacular combination. If you go back to a couple years ago when Greg Olsen had that huge breakout year, I had Greg Olsen, and there was, towards the end of the year, Cam got banged up. I wanted Derek Anderson to play because his connection with Greg Olsen was so great. So do not fear at all if Anderson ends up being the quarterback.
I agree that you do not fear, but I want to add to that Devin Funchess, who is worthless, who has not been used at all. I promise, if Derek Anderson is the quarterback, Devin Funchess, if you look in preseason, he had a game where he targeted him 10 times in a row. And when he came in this game, all of a sudden, he was targeting Funchess. And so, yeah, your theory of the backup quarterback going to that wide receiver too, I believe it.
Yeah, but I would never act on it.
I would. I can tell you right now. If
Funchess, who's done nothing for 4 weeks, you're giving advice to sign and play Devin Funchess?
I am saying that if Derek Anderson is named the starter next week, Devin Funchess will be in the flex category in my own rankings. That's what I'm saying.
Very interesting.
And you'll be alone.
I'll be alone, and I'll be right.
Good luck with that. Jace, Mike, I would like you to take a few minutes and talk about Jimmy Graham.
Oh.
Maybe
Jimmy,
apologize.
I think we can both hop in
Yeah,
on this
I feel
one.
like Jason has been equally, if not more harsh, but I do not mind apologizing at all. Jimmy Graham, You look spectacular, my friend.
I'm proud of him.
I doubted the injury recovery for Jimmy Graham, which I thought was the medically right thing to do. But he is back, even not practicing the entire week. He looks like the good Jimmy Graham.
You both were wrong about Jimmy and about Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as coming back off of injury.
No, the injury game is very hard to play because look at Jamal Charles. He's still not back. And then you have
what's that guy? Arian Foster.
Yeah, that's the one. I was very, very correct on Arian Foster.
How are you very correct on Arian Foster?
That he was going to get injured again?
Oh, but he's back from his Achilles injury and was the starter.
Well, yeah.
And
yes.
he got injured again.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it wasn't because of that injury.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah, tomato. Hunter Henry, 4 for 61 and a touchdown. And then Martellus Bennett put up 5 on 109 just so that Rob Gronkowski owners could be really sad and annoyed. That's the only reason. He said it after the game. That's the only reason he put up those kind of numbers. Nobody played him because they were afraid of Gronk. And then, of course.
They switched roles where Gronk was doing a bunch of extra blocking.
All right. Couple honorable mention names. Terrence West had a good game, 21 for 113, but we talked about Dixon coming back. I think West is startable next week.
Yeah.
Jeremy Curley had a good game again. Emmanuel Sanders, and then Dak Prescott, who I think we said, he was on the fence for my stream of the week. Slow start, great finish, played well, and, of course, no interceptions because he just doesn't throw interceptions. So let's move on.
Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week.
All right, it's time for the Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week. Guys we saw perform well both this week and who we think will be fantasy factors in the weeks to come. Who wants to start this off?
I'll start it off with a man who has risen many times, and he's turning back the hands of time. A very Benjamin Button-like year. I'm going to throw out some numbers, and you tell me if these would be considered raising. Are these going up? 19, 64, 87, 111.
Ascension.
That is a chronological performance of upward trends for Steve Smith,
Senor. My start of the week.
He was fantastic. Hopefully you jumped on the Periscope with me on Sunday where Steve Smith's name was coming up a lot. The matchup was great, and he just every week it has looked like he's become more and more comfortable returning from his double ruptured Achilles. Joe Flacco is finding him. He might even be on your waiver wire. There is a strong possibility that he's available for you to just go and grab him right now. And maybe if you have him, he's on your bench. He's now moved into you should start him weekly.
Yeah, he was a wide receiver 1 before he got injured. And if he's back, and he sure looks like now after these first 4 weeks that he's back and he's healthy, what's to say he couldn't be a high-end wide receiver 2 until he gets injured again, which, he's not an injury history guy. He plays through anything that's not a double ruptured Achilles.
I feel like he defeated the double ruptured Achilles with a bad attitude. Like he just attituded the Achilles away.
He is available in 40% of leagues.
Yes.
Insane. Michael Crabtree is my Raising Cane's Rising Star of the Week. It's time to stop with the Cooper hype. It's time to stop telling me that he's the number one, Amari Cooper, that is. Crabtree gets it done more often, more consistently. He's 26 for 308 and 4 now, compared to 20 for 318 and 0 touchdowns, including Crabtree putting up those 2 two-point conversions. So it seems like he's even scored more. More receptions, about the same amount of yards, 4 touchdowns. To me, he's this year's Eric Decker. He should have been paid more respect, but we always love the freaking perceived upside of the super athlete Amari Cooper. But the rapport between Derek Carr and Michael Crabtree, it's what you want. It's the red zone trust. It's the when I need a play, guess what they've done? It's not been Amari Cooper. It's been Crabtree.
Crabtree had a move on one of his touchdown receptions this week.
Oh,
he made the defense look foolish.
Yeah.
I mean, he made professional level athletes look like high school
that
kids
out and
there.
then up route. Oh, it was disgusting.
He put a juke on guys that, I mean, they fell directly out of their pants.
Yep, right out.
Yeah, I love Michael Crabtree, except I hated him this week on my on my bench. Went back and forth all week. My rising star, you could say very similar to Mike's. Let me give you some numbers and tell me whether they're rising. 1.3, 1.9, 10, 19. Because that is the fantasy points scored in a half-point PPR setting for my guy, talking about John Brown. John Brown, and the more important. The more important ascension numbers to me are the snap percentages, right? We saw he was gone through most of the preseason, missed a lot of training camp.
Concussion
with a terrible concussion issue. He had reoccurring headaches, and so they eased him back in. He wasn't returning kicks and wasn't involved in special teams. He played on 57% of snaps, 57% of snaps week 2. Last week, he's back. He played in 90% of snaps, and you saw what I was spouting out before the year. 10 for 144. He didn't even get a touchdown, and he was a top option at the wide receiver position. He is a rising star, and I love him. And if Carson Palmer is not there, I'm benching him because Drew Stanton is the worst.
John Brown also benefited that Michael Floyd got concussions in his hands. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did see that.
Why don't you explain that to me? What does that mean?
That he is dropping more than he's catching right now.
All right.
That's
so
a bit
John
hyperbolic,
Brown,
but he's been
Michael Crabtree, Steve Smith Sr., 3 wide receivers this week for our Raising Cane's Rising Stars of the Week. Don't forget, everybody, game day tastes better with Raising Cane's tailgates.
Yes,
full
it does.
of fresh 24-hour marinated hand-battered chicken fingers.
Oh,
I can't say it, but I can eat it.
they are delicious. And hey, pro tip of the week: if you're getting the box combo, you want to get that extra toast. Say, hey, I want to sub the coleslaw for an extra toast.
Here's another hot tip. You can actually sub out the bread for Texas toast if you get one of the chicken sandwiches. You can do that.
What?
Yes, you can do that.
What?
I've done that before. That's
That
not
sounds
if
so good.
you get the chicken sandwich and I'm telling you, it's possible. I've done it.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. All right, let's move on.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
All right, let's kick this one off. I don't even know if I got a finger up.
Well, no, I was just going to preface. I mean, if you're new and you're listening to the show and it's your first or second time in the pooped in their big boy pants segment, maybe you don't really understand the purpose here.
Sure, okay.
But I wanted to say that we put these guys out there not just to talk bad about them, but to kind of give you fantasy context for the rest of the year. Like, these guys stunk this week, but should it matter? Should it be something that makes you freak out or trade them, or do you just withstand, playing Denver?
Right. Yeah, so Marcus Mariota was bad. I was going to say, I don't know that his pants are very large at this moment. I'm not
Yeah, we can
starting.
move on from him.
All right, let's move on. Matthew Stafford.
Problem.
Oh, man. Only 23 for 213 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. I mean, this was a bad game.
And brutal interceptions.
In a very winnable matchup against the Bears.
Yeah, I stayed in the flames with Matthew Stafford, and it burned him. It burned him hot, and he had to get out of that fire. Coming up now, the next few weeks, he plays Philadelphia, which I've been saying for a while is very underrated defense. They were able to bottle up Big Ben a little bit.
They're by the way, they're the number 1 defense against fantasy wideouts, I think.
Yeah,
really.
So you've got
I'm pretty sure
Philly followed by the 3-1 LA Rams. I'm sure 4-1 by then. And so, Matthew Stafford is definitely a guy right now that you're not going to cut, but you might want to hold on to him, pick up another streaming option if there's a better available option for these next 2 weeks.
How many undefeated teams do we have left? We have Denver, we have Philly, we have the Vikings. That's it.
The Vikings, we'll see tonight.
That is it. That's all that's left. I mean, Denver's going to be in the mix again. Can't believe it. All right, Winston stunk against Denver. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Ryan picks Patrick once again, 3 picks. Ho-hum, 23 for 41. Look, you're starting to hear Geno Smith talk. I don't think it's going to happen yet, but if a couple more dud games and they start losing again, you're going to see the fan base push for Geno Smith, which is funny to say out loud. All right, Ryan Tannehill stunk this week as well. Had the 1 touchdown to Stills, but otherwise let you down against Cincinnati. We talked about that game on Friday. So let's talk about some running backs to let you down, what the future holds for them. Specifically, let's talk about Tevin Coleman, because Tevin Coleman had been that guy that we said unequivocal. Mike did. Jason did. I did. Tevin Coleman should have been traded last week. Whenever you blow up touchdown numbers when you're in a time split, that's a great opportunity to trade him. But do you think he bounces back? I mean, he's got Denver this week. He might not even play because of the sickle cell situation.
Yeah, I don't think he bounces back this week, but I think that Tevin Coleman is once he gets through this mess of these couple weeks, Carolina, which their run defense is still good, Carolina and Denver, then I think Coleman will be fine. I think he's a flex, a running back 3 and he has upside every
You're saying
single
later
week.
in the year.
Yeah.
I think this is the week you saw the shoe drop. We told you trade Latavius Murray as well because you're not going to be able to put up 1 touchdown per 10 carries
Every game.
every single game. He stunks, 8 for 19. And
He stunks?
No, I said he stunk.
It sure sounded like stunks.
I heard stunks.
We'll
He
have to go to
stunked.
the tape.
I like that the Jason Morisms this week had a poll of 4 things said from just this week by me. Oh man.
Running through the ground, stunked.
Yeah,
you're
there-
really
I'm
you're
on
a special,
fire.
You're a special. And the great thing is you're only getting older.
Yeah.
This is only going to get better. LeGarrette Blount, the shoe dropped for him. You know, you had Matt Forte, Latavius Murray, Tevin Coleman. They all stunked, as Jason would say.
Charles Sims had a bad game. You couldn't have high expectations versus Denver, but I was just going to ask, did you guys see Charles Sims crawl off the field?
No.
What was it, like a wounded warrior thing?
It looked like it, and no one was talking about it on Twitter. I posted it out there, and no one responded. They didn't report on an injury. So he eventually came back in the game, but it was just the oddest thing where he went down hard, and it wasn't I'll get up, I'll jog off. He literally crawled off because he was right by the sideline. Very bizarre.
That's exactly what I would do, regardless of injury.
I would roll.
I was going to say that's what I would do
No
as well. I would
crawling
roll.
for me.
So-
I think the biggest pooped in your big boy pants this week might have been LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount, I mean, you couldn't have expected anything but huge numbers for the guy who was leading the league in yards, who was leading the league in carries, who was going up against a beatable Buffalo defense and went out there for 13 for 53, did nothing.
Well,
the whole Patriots.
Yeah, so it was the entire Patriots team, really. Oof.
Yeah, I moved Blount up on Saturday night thinking, okay, I got to stop doubting this guy, and now he just winds me up. Now you have Brady back. Blount is not a 1 to me. Blount is not a 2 to me.
Oh,
Blount
he's
is
still
a
fine too to me.
flexible
I think-
matchup play.
I think he's a flex option this week, and we
Shoulda
got to see
traded
what
him.
happens.
Shoulda
And
traded him.
that was what I was recommending.
Wide receivers that stunk this week. I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins because compared to
Oof.
Will Fuller went out, had 7 catches, 81, and 2 touchdowns. I don't know how we didn't mention him in the earlier segment because that was a huge game from him. Somebody that's proving himself. Now 3 weeks out of 4, he's had really, really good fantasy games.
He's also very fast.
Super fast.
If you saw him on that return,
21.6
he looked
miles
like the
an hour.
fastest man alive.
But Hopkins, 1 for 4. What do you make of this?
Bad game.
Yep, I'm going to go out and see if I can buy Hopkins. He hasn't been special this year. I still think he is absolutely special. He is an extremely talented guy, and that level of talent wins out in the long run. So I'm going to take advantage of this and buy.
If DeAndre Hopkins has any Julio Jones in him, it means 300 yards are coming for D-Hop next week.
I actually had somebody this week ask me whether they should play Snead or Julio because they said they said Snead's coming back. He had those big games. Julio's not been good. And I said, please don't do what you want to do here with Snead. I'm going to give you names of guys that stunk at wide receiver. You're going to tell me whether you want to trade for them or leave them alone.
All right.
Okay.
Torrey Smith.
Leave him alone.
Leave him alone.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Trade for them.
I would try to acquire him, sure.
D-Jax.
I'm going to leave him alone.
1 for 5 and 0. Okay. Julian Edelman, 1 catch, 1 yard.
Get him.
Trade for him in all leagues.
If you watch the game, Julian Edelman opened the entire game with a 90-yard reception and run, got tackled sadly on the 1. It looked fantastic, and then the whole play got called back.
Guess he got tired after that, huh?
Yeah.
Willie Snead, 1 for 23.
I would try and get him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's still good.
Brandon Cooks, 3 for 31.
I would trade for him. I think he's going to be
I
good.
don't know.
He unsurprisingly, just like Drew Brees, has a very big home and road split. And so you've got a guy who's going to have some big games ahead.
Cooks has pretty much stunk since the first week. If you combine his 3 weeks after that, they pretty much equal his first week. So I don't like players like Brandon Cooks.
I'm very I'm very
Snead or Cooks rest of the season.
Cooks.
It's probably still Cooks, but here's the thing: you can get Snead if you're trying to acquire a Saints wide receiver. Snead's going to be the cheaper one and the one I would try to get. So if it just depends on the cost for Cooks. If someone's trying to get that capitalized still off of week 1, then there's no way I'm going to pay up for that.
Jason, you have Alshon Jeffery in our league of record. He was 3 for 46 this week. You saw Royal more involved in the game than Jeffery. Last week you saw White more involved in the game than Jeffery. Is this a case of being hampered by injuries, of no rapport with Brian Hoyer? What are you doing with Jeffery? Because his name might be bigger than his production right now.
I think it's being hampered by injury. I'm waiting until there's a big blow-up game and maybe you can trade him. I'm holding him in the meantime because I'm not going to sell him on the cheap by any means. I think he's going to be great, but I still worry with how he's been hampered. I worry that he's going to end up missing a few games over the next couple of weeks, just kind of getting shut down to try to be the Alshon Jeffery that the Bears need him to be. So I'm hoping that he has a big game, and then I would look to move him at that point because of injury.
I think I realized what happened. Why didn't we talk about Will Fuller? Because we didn't talk about any of the good wide receivers.
Wait, did I skip him?
You certainly did.
Are you serious?
Rewind.
Oh, wow. That's terrible. That makes it harder to have skipped him.
Why didn't we talk about Julio Jones?
Well,
he was so good.
We don't have to spend a ton of time because of this. We already talked about Fuller and Crabtree and Steve Smith in our Rising Stars, which was my strategic decision.
We talked about A.J.
Green.
Green.
That's a
Julio
pro move.
Jones did all the talking for us on the field. So let's talk about some of the we talked about Royal too.
Dontrell Inman. Let's give him some dap.
Yeah, Inman.
Big game.
He took my love for Travis Benjamin, and he said, "I'll take that."
And he broke your heart. He had.
This is what's going to happen, though. You're going to have
touchdown catch.
It's going to be a big week for Benjamin. Then it'll be a big week for Inman. Then it'll be a big Gates week or a Hunter Henry week.
Tyrell Williams,
or who knows, a Dexter McCluster week. You never know what's going on.
And
Tyrell Williams stunk.
Brian Quick had a big game. 3
touchdowns in 2 weeks for Brian Quick now.
I don't know if I'm going to chase that dragon. Brian Quick is, if you aren't familiar with Brian Quick, he is a name where people wanted him to be good for so long, and he just kept letting you down. So this is like that resurgence moment.
Every time he catches a pass, I think it's Kenny Britt.
Like
at first glance, because they're both big. I mean, Brian Quick's a big guy. I believe it was Quick and Britt that crashed the golf cart in
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks together, but Quick was like, "I'm sorry," and Kenny Britt was like, "Ha ha ha."
That was very funny.
Yeah, it was really silly. Okay, so obviously we're going to talk more about waiver guys to pick up like a Quick or a Royal tomorrow on the show. AJ Green had the monster week. We talked about everybody else.
All right,
so we can revert back to some sadness.
Back to people who stunk.
All right, tight ends. Gronkowski, 1 for 11. Pitta, 3 for 17.
Pitta.
Dwayne Allen, 2 for 20.
I'm done with Dwayne Allen.
Now, Kobe Fleener.
What do you do?
3 for 19.
Kobe Fleener, man, I really wanted
Is he going to be a home play because Breeze is a home play?
The entire Saints offense might be, besides Mark Ingram.
Breeze.
What you had pointed out the splits of Drew Brees.
Breeze was 40 fantasy points at home, 44 and 35. Fantasy points on the road, 19 and 18.
And that's
called
that's
his
a
career,
little,
I guess.
I was going to say that's a little extreme from what he usually does, but he does. I mean, he has always played so much better at home than on the road. My hope this last week was that it was like a second home game since he spent the first half of his career in San Diego. Didn't work.
So for Kobe Fleener, look, this is if you don't have one of the top tight ends, I don't know if you're really going to drop Fleener for somebody. I mean, I'm not going to go out and drop him for Barnage. I'm not going to drop him for Pitta or Witten. I'm just going to probably play him for the next couple weeks, and if he really flames out, then at that point I'll make an adjustment. But for me, I'm holding on Fleener because he had a big week last week. He was on the road. They ran it in. He also had one stolen from him.
Yes. Yeah.
So he would have scored if it wasn't for
Kuhn, the destroyer of dreams.
Yeah. All right. Some honorable poopers. Let's just go with DeAndre Washington. He fumbled, had a huge fumble in this game. His efficiency has been amazing. He's 6.3 a carry on the year, but he was supposed to get some more carries this week. It didn't happen. Nobody's getting carries, which is why I like Derek Carr. I mean, when push comes to shove, it seems like it's going to be Carr.
Yeah, and Carr is part of why Carr is so great. That offensive line is amazing. I mean, you can see it with the running back numbers. They're not getting a bunch of carries, but they're all hyper efficient. Derek Carr is he doesn't even break a sweat. I mean, he's going the laundry guy who has to wash the jersey. You're like, wait, Carr, did you play? Did you play today?
We'll just reuse it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just Febreze it and we're good.
I saw Andrew Luck, and he was sitting there like this watching the game with his hands. He was just looking at that offensive
Just dreaming.
line. Yeah, he was trying to trade Trent Richardson for that line. Couldn't do it. Couldn't trade Dorsett for that line either.
Oh, man.
Good thing they have a bunch of weapons. They can't get the ball in their hands. Ridiculous over there. You remember how every year the Colts were getting better with Luck, and it looked like they were going to be a perennial power for years and years to come because of that. And they can. The thing that's nice about having a franchise quarterback like Luck is that a couple pieces next year and the whole team can be great again. You see this with like Baltimore or some of the teams with Big Ben. I mean, Pittsburgh is a Super Bowl contender.
Look at the Falcons. You pay Alex Mack that money. Alex Mack is mauling fools in Atlanta.
It makes a huge difference. From what I understand, the offensive line is important.
I've heard. I've never played.
Todd Gurley called
football.
me this weekend. Gurley called me and he said, "Yeah, it's important." So, although I can't really blame, Gurley needs like 2 offensive lines.
Gurley
needs like 2 rows of them because of
the
amount of people coming in there. Yeah.
But that's going to happen every game.
Yep.
So it's not.
Let me ask you: rest of the season, C.J. Anderson, Todd Gurley.
C.J. Anderson. For sure.
All right. That is it for today's show. I want to remind everybody we got the show after the show tomorrow. We have our waiver wire show. We've got Keep Trade Cut coming this week. We are your every single day fantasy football source, part of the routine for you. And if you have any feedback for us, you can always go on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, connect with us there. You can also submit questions for our mailbag show. You can get involved with our community, and you can give us feedback on how we can make this independent podcast even better. You know, we've been doing this now for 280 shows, something like that. And I can tell you unequivocally, our goal when we walk in the morning is to have a great show, to give you guys the best insight that we can to improve your teams, to make solid trades, to learn how to be an owner and a commissioner, to have fun in your leagues, and to win Foot Clan titles.
Jason just hopes he doesn't mangle the English language.
I've completely given up hope on that. I just let it fly now.
Yeah.
Hey, check out fantasyjocks.com for all your trophy and championship belts and all kinds of great stuff for winners over there at fantasyjocks.com. Promo code footballers.
Hopefully Jason doesn't run the show under the ground or in the ground.
Thank you for
Remember
listening
that?
to another
Through
episode
the ground.
of the
Through
Fantasy
the ground. That's what
Footballers
it is.
Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.